Good evening and welcome to E-Bible Fellowship's Bible study in the book of Genesis. Tonight is study number 2 of Genesis chapter 1. We're going to be reading the first few verses. Genesis 1 beginning in verse 1. In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. And I'll stop reading there. We're looking at verse 1, which states, "In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth." And that statement goes contrary to just about all colleges today. Practically all schools today would teach that the origins of all things came about through a big bang, or even though sometimes they're not very clear on this anymore, yet still many hold that there was an explosion of something that they're unclear about. Long ago, billions of years ago, it exploded and the universe formed, and planet Earth formed, and the Earth, they say, is billions of years old. Well, given that even if we were to say, okay, let's say this is how it happened, this is how the universe came into being, how the world began. Well, then you have the question of life, because the planets, the stars, the sun, the moon, the earth, they lack life. And so then the theory continues that over the course of elongated periods of time, billions of years, that life developed. And the theory is, even though often they don't make this direct statement, that life developed from non-life, that things that are alive came from that which was not alive, from rock or from the combination of chemicals, and then suddenly there was an early form of life. Can you imagine that this idea has not only been accepted as a legitimate theory, but it's been accepted as the actual origins of all things for the most part, and it has been widely accepted by many governments, by many higher learning institutions, colleges and schools. And this is the theory they teach for the most part as fact, and as they will teach students from a very early age, that we came from the Big Bang, or the universe formed, and then life slowly began to form. And first there were these early bacterias, or whatever they were, and then they began to grow and develop into all the life forms we see today. How ridiculous. Ridiculous is not sufficient enough a word to describe the absurdity, the absolute foolishness of this whole idea. How could intelligent people, and they are very intelligent men and women, how could intelligent people actually hold to this kind of idea? Well, there's only one way that man can hold to this idea, and that's because the only other option is God. And mankind, fallen mankind, does not want God. They want to be their own gods. They want to be their own determiners of right and wrong, and they want to be independent agents that operate without a creator. And they prefer the idea that they have come from nothing and life is purposeless and meaningless and means nothing, to the alternative of a creator that created them, and therefore they would be responsible to obey that creator and to do as that creator willed or commanded for them to do. And man, that's the last thing the natural-minded person wants. So they're very prejudiced. And this prejudice, this deep down desire to flee away from God, to come out from under the constraints of His commandments and of doing His will, has blinded man, and really it has in this particular area caused him to operate in a very foolish way, because he cannot accept the alternative. He cannot honestly look at the other option, which is, as the Bible says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And it says in Romans chapter 1, in Romans 1, verse 19, I'm sorry, I'll back up to verse 18. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who hold the truth in unrighteousness, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has showed it unto them. For the invisible things of Him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even His eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Because that, when they knew God, they glorified Him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. So the world writes all sorts of books, textbooks that are in the schools that confidently affirm the origins of the universe are billions of years, the origins of the earth are billions of years ago, and it will speak of man's ancestors of coming out of these early stages of existence billions of years ago and slowly developing to our present form. And it's just complete foolishness. It is utter foolishness. And although it's not presented that way, it's presented as the wise and the brilliant, the scientists have figured this out, and they're the ones making the statements, and they'll say 13.7 billion years ago is when it all began, when a little electron-sized thing that they're very unclear of what it was or is exploded, and the universe has been expanding ever since, getting greater and greater, and all has come to pass. Isn't it amazing that, yes, we look around and mankind and the complex design of each human being and all the various animals, the cats, the dogs, the monkeys and elephants, and the sea creatures, the fish and the clams and the lobsters, and all the birds of the air and the insects, and all the wonderful plant life and flowers and in bloom, and all this creation, all the things we see everywhere that we know because they can put it under a microscope and they can see the complexity of the ant, or the complexity of the mosquito, or the complexity of all these creatures, the DNA that forms man, and so forth. We see just the complex design of all of these things all around us,